Hello, my beautiful mythical creatures. Ace here, he, she, and I'm back at you with another chapter of Kaijin, written by Namadi, which I'm going to be honest, I've been reading since where I left off, on my own. And oh my goodness, it's still so freaking good. Anywho, chapter 10, Scarce Blue and Deja Vu. Summary. Eraser officially meets Kaijin and crew. There we go. And Katsuki makes a friend. Katsuki! Can you tell who my favorite character is? Anywho, trigger warning. Mentions of abuse, bullying, kids being no, bullying, bullying. No, I cannot say it for the life of me, like my whole life. Anywho, and injuries. Once the muggers were handed over to the police, Eraserhead climbed the nearest fire escape and followed Night Jumper, who was shadow warping from building to building. He caught up on a building with an access door and a water tower on stilts. Eraser looked for the vigilante. Where is he? Being a brat, Jumper scoffed. Eraser turned to question the younger hero, but was cut off. Give me a break, Jumper. I just had my shit rocked. I'm taking a rest. Just past Night Jumper, under the water tower, was Kaijin. He was hanging upside down, expertly twirling a needle cayenne between his clawed fingers, his fluffy tail swaying behind him. Slitted eyes seemed to glow as he watched. Language problem, child, Eraser admonished automatically. How do you know swear words but not distort? The cryptid laughed and jumped down. The freakily creepy toe claws changed to rabbit feet as he landed. Obi is a bad influence, Kaijin replied. Kaijin, this is the Eraser hero Eraserhead, the vigilante interrupted. You're one of my favorites. Not many people know who I am, the underground hero confessed. Kaijin shrugged. When Night Jumper contacted us, we did some research. You run the underground agency he's licensed with. I expected you would pop up eventually. Eraserhead was impressed and a little put off by Kaijin's knowledge. Underground agencies were highly secretive. Very few people even knew they existed. Why were you expecting me? Kaijin scoffed. Jumper isn't stupid, and neither am I. We knew that when he realized how young I was, he would report it. Then you know I am here, Eraser stated. If they had done so much digging as he expected, Kaijin would know his reputation for helping vigilantes get hero license. Kaijin's eyes narrowed. He stopped spinning the blade and held it casually, but ready to use. No thanks, Eraser. I'm doing just fine on my own. But you're not on your own. My offer extends to Obin and your newest partner, Henya, as well. Based on Night Jumper's reports, it would be impossible to convince Kaijin to become a hero without also looping in the other vigilante and the informant. They were an impressive team. Eraser was honestly glad that the trio of young crime fighters had come together and protected each other like family. All three of you do good work. We could use talented heroes like you. It's still no, Eraser, Kaijin replied. He leaned casually against one of the stilts, projecting an air of confidence, but he fiddled with the flap of one of his pants pockets, and his eyes were ever watchful. Come on, kid, Jumper tried. We want to help. Don't you trust me? Eraser suppressed a flinch. Years of convincing vigilantes to walk the straight and narrow had taught him a few things, like not assuming anyone who chose the path of illegal crime fighter ever trusted anyone. He saw the moment Kaijin tensed, but was surprised when it wasn't anger that filled his eyes, but regret. I respect you, Jumper, but I don't trust you, the vigilante said bluntly. Night Jumper looked honestly upset at his statement. I've been through a lot. I've saved myself. Not a single hero helped me. Oben, Hanya, and I will continue as we are. It was a tale Eraser had heard time and again. Hero society failed Kaijin. This child had to fend for himself through whatever trials life had thrown at him. He was abandoned, but he had found others like himself and built something truly impressive. If it wasn't for how young the group was, Eraser would have considered simply reporting them as underground assets to the commission and leaving them be. But he wanted to give them a better life, off the streets. Reliable access to food, medical care, loving parents. Eraser mentally shook himself when the image of Hazashi and Noi walking in a park with a black-haired kid flashed in his head. Stop it, Sho. He's not one of your strays. You don't have to trust us, kid, he assured the vigilante. But the commission is starting to notice you. He was cut off by Kaijin holding up his hand. His eyes flitted around the rooftop, his ears twitching as he became alert. The two undergrounds looked around, trying to detect what had Kaijin on edge. A silver blur shot past Eraser's ear and straight at Kaijin. The vigilante shifted to his right, snatching the blade out of the air, mere inches from where his face had been. You're going to have to try harder. I could have easily dodged that. Eraserhead and Night Jumper were still locked in defense stances, as a girl with blonde hair in a pair of buns and a black and red costume skipped out of the shadows. Night Jumper grabbed Eraser's arm, pulling his hand away from the capture weapon. He shook his head. Hi, Kei-chan. Oben said you needed backup, but you were just having a... Hey, Kei-chan. Oben said you needed backup, but you were just having a party without me. The girl pouted and threw her arm over the shorter boy's shoulder. The snarling Oni mouth guard contrasted strangely with her bubbly attitude and sparkling eyes. Hey, Ahanya, Night Jumper greeted. cluing the older hero into her identity. Give me a quick sec. There we go. The vampire vigilante, Hanya. She had appeared a little less than a year ago patrolling with Kaijin. Around this time, Oben also started dealing with more valuable information. They suspected that Hanya had something to do with it, but without knowing her quirk, it was hard to tell. All they knew was that she was agile, good with knives, and was known for taking blood from some of her victims. Criminals they interviewed reported her asking them for their blood and making other unsettling comments. Oven is a mother hen, Kaijin complained. I'm just having a meeting with our friends, Hanya hummed, not even looking at the two heroes. You got any blood? I came straight here. Haven't taken a sip in a few hours. Kaijin dug in his pockets and took out the vial of red liquid. He handed it to Hanya, who shifted her mask and downed it like a shot of sake. Excuse me, sorry. That's better. I was going a bit loopy. Hanya had a blood quirk. Eraser filed that away for later. It certainly explained a lot. What's the stitch, Sir Cryptid? The vampire asked. Eraserhead here was just offering us legal employment as heroes. Neither vigilante indicated they were aware that the heroes were still present. It was like they were in their own little world, but Eraser didn't doubt both were keeping tabs on them. He'd seen this tactic before. This was their territory. They were in control. Nightjumper and Eraserhead were outsiders. As if, Hanya scoffed. They said that the commission will back off if we get licenses. They obviously don't know anything about the commission then. That made Eraser perk up. Had the commission already contacted the trio? What do you mean? He asked. Kaijin and Hanya shared a conspiratorial look before turning to him. You don't really believe the commission will leave us alone just because we have licenses, do you? Oh, shoot, that was Hanya. You don't really believe the commission would leave us alone just because we have licenses, do you? Hanya inquired, tilting her head curiously. Why would they care once you're legal? Jumper asked. Kaijin laughed humorously. Oben, Hanya, and I have quirks the commission would love to get their hands on. Giving us a license would just make it easier for them. Maybe you should stop investigating us and try looking inward. I would start with that new hero, Hawks. Something fishy is going on there. Eraserhead already had suspected that the commission was too involved in the new hero's career. The 22-year-old had appeared from nowhere with a license and a commission-sponsored agency. He was already in the top 50 just a few months after his debut. "I'll look into it," he said, recognizing the challenge for what it was, a test to prove he took them seriously, that he was willing to doubt the foundations of hero society. Kaijin suddenly tilted his head, his eyebrows furrowing in confusion. He made a clicking noise, his ears swiveling to his left for a moment. He sighed as he pulled out his phone. It rang twice on speaker before someone picked up. "You on your way back?" a slightly raspy voice asked. "Don't play dumb, Oben." Kaijin scalded. "I see you 3 roofs over with a sniper rifle." Both heroes stiffened and turned towards where Kaijin's ears had indicated the threat was. They stood perfectly still. "The safety's on. I'm just using the scope," the informant assured them. Oh, I love Dobby. "That doesn't make us feel better," Jumper snapped. "Blame the little monsters. They didn't check in," Oben replied. Hey, Racerhead. Does this count as our official meeting?" Oben. Eraser greeted, relaxing a little. He was reasonably sure the trio didn't mean them any harm. They were just agents of chaos that were determined to give him a migraine. "Do I want to know where you got the gun?" "You know, I get around." "Now send my dear brother and sister off home. I promise you'll see them again." "I think we're finished here," Eraser assured him. "Finally, a competent babysitter," the informant snarked. "Hey!" Jumper protested. Stand down, Oben. We'll be home soon," Kaijin promised. "Bye, Dad," Hanya said sweetly. Oben grumbled as he hung up. I guess this is good night then," Kaijin said, pocketing the phone. Can we expect you to try and follow us?" Jumper sputtered, his mouth opening and closing a few times. "Jumper-chan and Eraser-chan have things to talk about," Hanya answered for the hero. "I think we're safe tonight." She jumped into Kaijin's arms. The smaller boy took her weight, no problem. "Fly, my pretty. I want to stir-fry," she cried. Kaijin giggled at her childish antics. The scene warmed Eraser's soul, even as it made his chest tighten. They were so young. With a nod to the heroes, wings snapped open, and the pair dove off the roof, flying into the night. Different point of view. Middle school fucking blows. If it wasn't boring lessons on shit he already knew, it was the dumb extras trying to cozy up to him. Even teachers were pathetically transparent as they praised his every action and gushed about how amazing he was. He knew it wasn't him. It was his quirk. Aldera Middle School was a low-funded low-performing school with nothing to boast about. When it came to Bakugo Katsuki, then in came Bakugo Katsuki with looking up aspirations, a hope or admission of archive something. Then came in Bakugo Katsuki with aspirations of being a hero and a quirk to back it up. He was their ticket to notoriety, the state of being famous or well known for some bad quality or deed. What? I was not expecting that. Notoriety. If one of their students made it into UA and then became a top-ranking hero, the school would reap the rewards. None of them knew. None of them even cared to learn how hard Katsuki had worked just to control his explosions so he didn't blast the closest person into bits every time he worked up a sweat. How often he had treated burns and iced his aching muscles on his journey to get stronger. How many times he spent with Kayama sensei and Kayama sensei and Toyomasa sensei, so he could become more than a walking bomb and could actually make a difference. Hey, Bakugo! Katsuki grounded his teeth as two oblivious bastards that had decided to cling to him like leeches sauntered up to his desk. I heard we got a new student today, said Fingers. I wonder what their quirk is, added Wings. Who cares? Katsuki snapped. Already done with them in homeroom, had just started. You're right. No way their quirk is cooler than yours. Fingers clapped him on the shoulder. Katsuki shrugged it off with a growl. He had given up in the first few weeks of term trying to get it through their thick skulls that he didn't care about quirks, that no quirk was useless or villainous. No one could fathom the idea that Katsuki, with his powerful quirk and confident attitude, didn't look down on everyone else. They projected their own toxic hero worship onto him. The rumors that had followed him out of elementary school didn't stop. All right, class, in your seats, the teacher called as she swept into the room, a student Katsuki didn't recognize following her. The leeches didn't leave. They knew that if they were talking to Katsuki, the teacher wouldn't do anything about it. She just stood awkwardly in the front of the room, not making a move to save him from their mind-numbing looking up again. Bothering action of talking long-windedly without making much sense. What is it? Babbling? No. Bothering? He did his best to ignore it and studied the new kid instead. He had wild lavender hair sticking up in all directions, like he'd just been shocked. His uniform was too big and hung off his scrawny frame. His eye bags rivaled both of Loudmouth's husbands combined. "Get your asses in gear," Katsuki finally snapped, taking pity on the purple kid's obviously increasing anxiety. "Fuck off." They laughed like he hadn't just shot them his most dangerous glare, and finally let the teacher start class. "This is Shinzo Hitoshi. He just transferred in. Please make him feel welcomed." As if, Katsuki thought, as several people snickered. He's going to get hazed. "Tell us about yourself, Shinzo-kun." "No thanks," he answered in a bored voice. "Come on, at least tell us your quirk." The kid tensed up, hands in his pocket balled into fists, as fear flashed in his eyes. "Don't do that," Katsuki tried to warn him silently. Some of his classmates leaned forward with greedy expressions, sensing blood in the water. "No," the blonde kid repeated. "Shinzo-kun, don't be rude. Tell us what your quirk is," the teacher pressed. "He'll have to tell them now, or whatever they make up will be worse." "My quirk is brainwashing." Shit, he took it back. That was so much worse. Katsuki saw fingers and wings share an evil grin out of the corner of his eye. They were going to eat him alive. The teacher gave Shinzo a poisonously sweet smile. Katsuki almost combusted when he realized that bitch had known his quirk and threw him to the wolves. "Thank you, Shinzo-kun. You can take the empty seat by the window." Homeroom went on as normal, as did the rest of the day. In the next 3 weeks, Katsuki kept a close eye on his classmates and Shinzo. There seemed to be a bubble around the purple kid at all times. During PE, in the cafeteria, even in the halls, the crowd would part around him. Students were scared of him. They didn't know how his quirk worked, so they wouldn't even let him touch them, or talk to them, or even make eye contact. Katsuki didn't let his guard down, though. He knew it wouldn't last. The stalemate finally broke in PE a month after Shinzo arrived. They were playing dodgeball. Shinzo was on the opposite team, and everything was going well, until Katsuki noticed Shinzo's teammates were dropping like flies. They were being taken out much faster than they should have been, and with hits they should have been able to dodge. Soon it was only Shinzo left. Everything went still before a parade of rubber balls rocketed at Shinzo from both Katsuki's team and his own teammates sitting on the sidelines. The purple-haired boy scrunched up and threw his arms over his head as the hits rained down on every part of his body until a ball hit him square in the shoulder blades, and he went down with a gasp, landing awkwardly on his shoulder. "What the fuck was that?" Katsuki screamed, causing the gym teacher to finally look up from his phone. The blonde marched up to Shinzo's closest classmate and grabbed him by the collar, not caring that his hand was red hot and scorched the fabric. Did you throw the match on purpose? Come on, Bakugo. You get it. The villain needs to be taught his place. Katsuki was seething. It wasn't a fair fight, he screamed. Now, the teacher said, placing his hand on Katsuki's shoulder. The explosion user dropped his classmate and shrugged off the hand. We all know how competitive you are, but you won, as usual. The teacher sounded so proud when he said it that Katsuki stared at him in shock for a moment. He hadn't meant that the dodgeball game wasn't fair. He meant the ferocious, dishonorable attack on Shinzo had no chance of defending against. By the time Katsuki had wrestled his rage into a small enough ball to snap at his teacher without destroying the gym, the bell rung. They were dismissed. Katsuki looked around for Shinzo, but he was already gone, hopefully to the nurse. He did not, in fact, go to the nurse. He was already at his desk when they got to their next class, protecting his shoulder and wincing every time he moved. Katsuki didn't know why the scene gave him déjà vu, or why he suddenly felt very protective of the new kid. It escalated from there. Nasty comments were written on his desk and his locker. He was tripped and pushed in the hall. His small bento box was thrown to the floor and stomped on. The teachers mocked him when he got answers wrong in class, or when he choked on his words and couldn't bring himself to speak. The day Katsuki got to class and saw Shinzo twirling a spider lily in his fingers, he had just about had enough. Shinzo's bento had been stomped on again. Katsuki stepped over it as he entered the cafeteria. The mager, lacking in quality or quantity. Meager. The meager helping of rice and edamame on the ground into the tile. He looked around for the beacon of lavender hair, but didn't see it anywhere, so he went searching. As he passed the stairwell to the second floor, he heard voices. Keep your hands in your pocket. I don't want a disgusting villain touching me. There was a yelp, and another voice cut in. No one wants you here. Why don't you run off and die? Katsuki saw red as he kicked the door open, revealing fingers holding Shinzo's wrists so he couldn't pull them from his pocket, as Wings had a fistful of purple hair and was wrenching the brainwasher's head to the side. What the fuck are you fuckers doing? He snarled. Hey, Bakugo, want to get in on this? Fingers asked gleefully. The lavender eyes with white pupils snapped to lock with fiery red. There was fear there, but also a burning defiance that basically slapped Katsuki in the face. He could have sworn those eyes turned green for a moment, and he suddenly understood why seeing Shinzo being treated like this made his heart ache. What do you say? You can have the first punch? Wings offered, tugging Shinzo's head forward as if presenting it to him. Fuck it. This had worked before. Back off. This bitch is mine, he snarled, pushing fingers out of the way. He grabbed Shinzo by the back of his jacket and tugged him towards the door. Hey, at least let us watch, Wings whined. Katsuki had to remind himself that if he popped off now, he would hurt Shinzo. Fuck off. Don't follow me. He escorted Shinzo past the cafeteria and out to the sports field. Once they were hidden behind the equipment shed, he released Shinzo, letting him lean against the wooden boards. Are you okay? He asked. Shinzo regarded him weirdly. His body had turned away and his body was turned away and his knees were bent, ready to run. Don't run. If they see you too soon, they'll know. Just wait a second and I'll explain. Katsuki retreated several steps and let off a few explosions. The loud noise made Shinzo jump and press his back to the shed. Sorry, Katsuki apologized. I had to burn some sweat off. A spark of confusion shone behind Shinzo's apprehension and fear. It's my quirk. I sweat nitroglycerin. Sometimes I have to burn it off, or it'll build up, and I can really hurt someone. Are you okay? He repeated. Shinzo remained silent, but he wasn't posed to escape anymore. He still looked confused. Katsuki remembered all the times Shinzo seemed to go mute and couldn't say a word no matter how harshly someone was laying into him. Can you sign? The question seemed to shock Shinzo like an electric current. His eyes locked with Katsuki. You know JSL? He signed. Yeah, I'm going deaf from the explosions, so my sensei suggested I learn. Plus, it's good for hero work. Shinzo appeared to take in the new information before signing again. What's going on? Right, it's a little complicated, but if everyone thinks I've claimed you as my personal punching bag, they should leave you alone. Shinzo's entire aura changed. He glowered at Katsuki, all his swirling emotions suddenly replaced by anger. Of course, he hissed, finding his voice. The amazing hero hopeful Bakugo Katsuki wants to protect the weak villainous kid. What do you really want? To use me to trick the world into thinking you're more than just a bully? Katsuki felt his anger bubble up, but years of therapy helped him restrain it in. It must have shown on his face, though. Shinzo suddenly looked like he regretted opening his mouth. When have you ever seen me bully anyone? He asked. Shinzo started to answer, but stopped. Katsuki could almost hear the whirl of a projector as Shinzo played back months of memory looking for one time Katsuki had actually bullied anyone. It doesn't matter, Shinzo snapped, not backing down. You're brash and angry and have a powerful quirk. No one with a heroic quirk would care about someone with a villainous quirk. So what? You're going to judge me based on a stereotype, just like everyone did to you? Katsuki yelled back. Let me tell you something about my oh-so-heroic quirk. When I manifested it, I nearly blew my best friend's face off. Can you imagine that? A 6-year-old suddenly being able to set off lethal bombs in their hands? I put serious work into making sure I can control it, but my quirk still affects me every day. I already said it's making me deaf, but did you know nitroglycerin is toxic? I'm immune to its effects, but my body still recognizes it as a threat. I'm on blood pressure medication so that the adrenaline in my body is pumping out at all times doesn't stop my heart. I'm constantly angry because the best way to burn off excess adrenaline is to be angry or terrified. And I can't afford to be terrified if I want to be a hero. Katsuki was panting as he finished. All his frustration around his quirk and how this godforsaken school that knows nothing about his struggles treated him like he was hot shit just because he was a future hero poured out of him. It felt oddly cathartic, even if he was a little embarrassed to have dumped it on Shinzo. What about the kid they told me you bullied and made disappear? Shinzo asked. His tone was curious this time instead of accusing, but Katsuki's stomach dropped. He knew he had gone deathly pale based on Shinzo's sudden horror. Too many emotions suddenly slammed into him. Regret, sadness, helplessness, grief, and present anger. He felt his quirk rolling under his skin. His palms burning as sparks flew off them. He turned and let off a large blast, scorching the grass for several meters. He stood deathly still, gasping for breath and shaking. When he finally turned around, he expected Shinzo to be gone, but he was still there looking worried. Izuku was my best friend. The day I came to school with a new quirk, he came with a giant burn scar on his cheek, and a rumor started that I was bullying him. We wanted to be heroes together, but he was diagnosed quirkless. I guess his mom didn't want to raise a quirkless child because she sold him off because she sold him to a gang, and I never saw him again. Katsuki wasn't sure when he started crying. He angrily wiped away the tears. I wasn't the same after I let my anger control me. It felt better than the emptiness. The rumors of his disappearance got all tangled up with the bullying accusations, so everyone thinks it's my fault somehow. There was silence. Katsuki didn't look up at Shinzo. He couldn't bear to see the pity on his face. If there was one thing he couldn't stand, it was people thinking Izuku's disappearance had broke him. It had, but it also inspired him, helped him put the pieces back together, and gave him direction and purpose. Wow, Shinzo stuttered. I'm sorry I listened to those assholes. Katsuki barked out a laugh, sniffling as he dried the last of his tears. He's not dead, is he? Katsuki finally looked at Shinzo. He was more relaxed, if a little anxious, about the answer to his questions. Nah, Nerd's too smart for that. He's out there somewhere. This time, Katsuki didn't look away, as he waited for the pity he always saw in his parents' and therapist's eyes when he denied that Izuku could be gone for good. It didn't happen. All he saw was defiance and determination that reminded Katsuki so much of his best friend sparked up again. Good, he said. I want to meet him one day. He'll love your quirk. He'll ask you so many questions your head will spin. Shinzo's eyes darkened a little as he nervously shuffled his feet. So, I'm your personal punching bag now? It worked before. No one dared bully Izuku once people decided I already was. Just keep your head down. Shinzo nodded as the bell rang. Katsuki didn't tell Shinzo that it was only a matter of time until the ruse was discovered. No matter how often or loudly the blonde insulted Shinzo or directed explosions in his direction, they would eventually catch on. He was sure someone would notice Shinzo was never actually injured. But it had been several weeks, and everyone assumed Katsuki was hurting Shinzo. Because Shinzo was getting injured. When Katsuki noticed new bruises a couple of weeks after the conversation behind the shed, he confronted Shinzo. They started meeting on a street corner near the back of the school every day. That Katsuki didn't have training. So they could walk home. Turns out, Shinzo didn't live too far from him, splitting off just a couple of blocks from Katsuki's street. Is someone still bullying you? He asked, gesturing to the purple bruise on Shinzo's cheekbone. Nah, I ran into a door. I hit my arm on the door, Kachan. It was the ghost of an old memory, but it was just enough to make him shiver. You sure? Shinzo didn't look him in the eye. Yeah, I'm just a klutz. I'm so worried about Izuku. He can be a klutz sometimes. He almost gagged as Auntie Inko's voice filled his head. They were reaching the corner where Shinzo always turned when Katsuki went straight on. He had to do something. Hey, he said, throwing an arm around the purple net. We're friends, right? Katsuki had promised himself he would never have friends again after Izuku. At first, it was because no one was good enough to replace him. Then, it was because Katsuki was too closed off to let anyone try. Now, he was willing to rip himself open again if it meant the purple-haired boy that reminded him so much of Izuku would just talk to him. I guess, Shinzo answered hesitantly. Good. I'll see you tomorrow, loser. He ruffled Shinzo's hair and continued down the street with a wave. After that, Shinzo shared more about himself. Katsuki learned that he had been in foster care since he was 5, abandoned to the system when his quirk came in. People at his last school did shitty things and said that Shinzo forced them. Eventually, that home and school kicked him out, and he ended up in Musatafu at Eldera Middle School. One day, Katsuki arrived to see a cast on Shinso's arm. Katsuki dragged him away, despite the jeers from their classmates, and asked him what the hell happened. I fell down the stairs, Shinso replied as he looked at Katsuki's chest when he said it. Come on, what really happened? I tripped on the carpet and fell down the stairs. Nothing more. Nothing more to tell. Katsuki opened his mouth, but caught the sight in Shinso's eyes. There was actual terror there, a deep bone fear of Katsuki not believing him. Watch your fucking step next time, you klutz. You're going to break your neck at this rate. Shinso looked like he would melt from relief and headed to the bathroom to hide from their peers for lunch break. Katsuki stayed where he was, alone, in a little used corridor, using the breathing exercise his therapist had taught him. He felt useless, not being able to help Shinso, but he wouldn't be working with Midnight and Fat Gum for nothing. He knew directly confronting his friend could push him away. He was scared of who was hurting him. Katsuki would put money on it being the foster parents. They were likely holding something over his head to ensure his silence. Katsuki would just have to prove he could be trusted and let Shinso come to him. It was the last week of term when Katsuki realized he couldn't wait anymore. It was insanely hot outside, but the PE teacher insisted on a 2-kilometer run to see their improvement. Everyone had collapsed on the grass, too tired to notice Shinso and Katsuki sitting together as they caught their breath. Shinso used the collar of his t-shirt to wipe sweat from his face. When he looked in Katsuki's direction, it took everything in him to remain calm. A line extending from one cheek to the other over the bridge of his nose was red and irritated looking even under the thin film of concealer still clinging to his skin. A muzzle. Katsuki covered his enraged growl with a huff as he stood and stalked away to burn off some sweat. The blasts were bigger than normal, thanks to the storm of emotions raging in him. How long has this been happening? How often? Was it every day when Katsuki left him to walk alone back to that hellhole? Katsuki wouldn't let him go back. As the rest of the class headed inside to air conditioning and drink of water, Katsuki pulled out his phone. Think, call me. It was Tuesday. You're coming to training with me? You want to come to training with me today? Hitoshi looked up from his beat-up flip phone and blinked at Bakugo as he approached their corner. He had been dreading when the blonde would say he had realized his scars. He had been dreading what the blonde would say when he had realized his scars were visible after PE. He had reapplied the makeup and prayed that Bakugo hadn't noticed. You mean the super secret training you won't tell me about? Yeah, I trust you. And you want to be a hero too, right? I could use a new sparring partner. Hitoshi could feel his eyes lit up, even as he tried to maintain his usual indifference attitude. Ever since the brainwasher had confessed that he wanted to be a hero to prove that he was a villain, and Katsuki had encouraged him, Hitoshi loved talking about hero training and UA with the blonde. It was often the highlight of his day, even if it did eventually lead to talking about his quirk, a topic he always avoided. He really liked Bakugo, and he didn't think he could handle if the blonde stopped talking to him. Sure, I'll come, he agreed. Bakugo walked them in the opposite direction they usually took. Let's get going. If we're late, I'm going to make you do any drills Sensei gives me. They caught the train for a few stops and walked the rest of the way. Hitoshi's confusion grew as they got closer to their destination. Looking up, climate, clominate. Welcome to my world where I cannot say words. Climate 8. Reach a climax or point of highest development. Climating in pure shock when Katsuki pulled him across the street towards the gate. What are we doing here? Bakugo rummaged in his bags. Going to train, or did you forget? Bakugo, this is UA. His friend pulled out a pass and scanned it. The gates opened with a heavy thud. Why do you have a pass for UA? Hitoshi was basically yelling now, his eyes wide. This is where I train. Yamada-sensei is the teacher here. Hitoshi followed Bakugo in a daze. They entered the school. Several lingering students waved to the blonde as he marched through the halls. Eventually, they stopped outside of one of the gyms, and Bakugo gently pushed Hitoshi towards the double doors. I have to change. I already told him you were coming. Go introduce yourself, and don't freak out. Hitoshi shook his head to clear it. Freak out? Why would I freak out? He asked, but Bakugo was already gone. The purple knight opened the door slowly and popped his head inside. The gym was huge, with miniature mountains and full-size buildings scattered around. A few sparring mats were laid out close to the door. A tall man with blonde hair up in a bun was pacing in front of a line of robots and typing on a tablet. As if sensing eyes on him, he turned around and shot a beaming smile at Hitoshi. You must be Katsuki's friend. I'm Yamada Hizashi. Come in. Hitoshi approached the man. He had lime green eyes behind rectangular reading glasses. His nails were painted sky blue, and his combat boots had yellow laces with a guitar pin attached to the left one. He wore distressed blue jeans and a leather jacket Hitoshi recognized. Suddenly, he remembered all UA staff were required to be pro heroes. This man was a pro hero. Present Mike. You're the voice hero, Present Mike, he said in awe. Present Mike laughed. I am. I'm impressed. Not many people recognize me out of costume. Your jacket gave it away. Ah, that would do it. Normally, I would be in my civvies, but right now, normally I would be in my civvies by now, but I need my support items for training today. The door burst open and Bakugo strode in. He was wearing track pants and sneakers. His tight-fitting black shirt had old stitches around the shoulders and upper arms. He was making final adjustments on the green gauntlets on his wrists. "Hey, loudmouth, are we doing fight training today?" Hitoshi gaped at him. "Bakugo, that's Present Mike," he scolded. "So? He's a loudmouth. Are you going to tell me that I'm wrong?" Hitoshi didn't really have a comeback as his eyes flickered between his friend and the hero. "No worries, Shinso. I've been training the Pomeranian for 2 years. I'm used to it," Present Mike said with a wink. "Yeah, we're going to work on dodging in turbulence? Looking up. I think that is turbulence. Turbulence today. In other words, you're going to start by school. Sick. Oh, that's how you spell it. Sitting a dog or another animal on someone. In other words, you're going to start by sicking the robots on me, then move on to screaming until I fall out of the sky? Exactly, the hero said, as if Bakugo hadn't just described something that sounded extremely dangerous. "Go do your warm-ups." Yamada Sensei, as he insisted Hitoshi call him, when he tried to go with present Mike Sensei, was a good teacher. He was patient and active and attentive. He was patient and attentive to Bakugo even when he was just scratched, making sure he was as ready as he could be for training. Even when he was just stretching to make sure he was as ready as he could be for training. You know the drill. The robots have been programmed to be faster this time. Bring it on! Bakugo cheered as he blasted off into the jungle of buildings and stone pillars. Robots scattered through the gym, shooting red balls at him, and began shooting red balls at him. He rocketed through the air, either knocking balls away or avoiding them with a series of well-timed explosions. "I didn't know he could do that," Hitoshi said. "He's been working on that for a long time. When I offered to train him, he could only handle one jump straight up." Bakugo executed an impressive dive and spiraled to avoid four balls at once before hovering with a series of rapid-fire explosions, taking off again. "Katsuki said you wanted to apply for UA. Hitoshi tore his eyes from Bakugo's aerial acrobatics and looked at Yamada-sensei. "Yeah, I'm going to apply to general studies." Yamada frowned. "Not heroics?" Hitoshi fidgeted with his shirt. He knew he stood no chance at passing the heroic practical. Bakugo was amazing, and there was hundreds of other applicants with flashy quirks like his. I have a mental quirk. It's best if I get in through general studies and transfer during the sports festival. Besides, my fosters wouldn't allow me to apply to the hero course anyways. Why would your foster parents not want you to try for heroics? Hitoshi mentally kicked himself. He said too much, and now they were on a forbidden topic. They worry about me, he answered vaguely. Yeah, they worry I'm going to be a villain, he added bitterly in his head. Are you sure it has nothing to do with brainwashing being considered a villainous quirk? Hitoshi's eyes snapped to Yamada's. His breathing caught in his chest. He knew. Bakugo had told him. Was this all a trick? Were they going to laugh at him behind his back? Was he going to be told by President Mike himself that he couldn't be a hero? That he was only ever good to be a villain? My husband's quirk is considered villainous, the hero continued. Hitoshi blinked. His lungs ached as his oncoming panic attack suddenly stopped in his track. Now he's a wonderful hero that saves people every day. People who judge someone based on their quirk and not their actions or heart are the worst kind of villain. Hitoshi thought of his foster father hitting him, kicking him, berating him, of his foster mother ignoring him and taking away his food. He thought of the muzzle and being kicked into the cold to sleep in the doghouse. Do me a favor and cover your ears, please, Yamada said, nudging Hitoshi out of his head. He complied, but his ears still rang when the voice hero yelled for Bakugo to come back. Did you know I was born with my quirk? Yamada asked as he waited for his student. I deafened the doctors, nurses, and my parents with my first cry. Bakugo landed a little ways away. Cat, can you get my makeup bag from my gear? Hitoshi expected Bakugo to make some kind of fuss, but when his eyes flicked to Hitoshi, they held something that the purple net had never seen in the confident blonde. Desperation. The kind that people had when they prayed for a miracle. My parents didn't want me after that. I would have ended up in foster care if my grandparents didn't take me in. At the time, it was illegal to put infants on quirk-suppressing drugs. Bakugo returned with a small bag covered in Sharpie music notes. Yamada rummaged in it until he pulled out a small cloth. But there was no laws against quirk-suppressing devices. With one long swipe, Yamada wiped away his makeup to reveal a silvery line across his cheeks and nose. Another wipe, and suddenly there were 2 more scars on either side of his chin. I wore a muzzle until I was 5. That's when my grandparents was finally able to get the drugs. But my grandfather was a cheap bastard and would only let me take them to go to school. The rest of the time, I remained in the muzzle. This went on until I was 8, and my grandmother couldn't stand it anymore. She divorced him and took me away. She got me a quirk counselor, and I started being able to control my voice. A warm hand grabbed Hitoshi's and held it tightly. Bakugo's form swam as Hitoshi looked up. When had he started crying? Something I didn't tell you about Izuku. His mother beat him his whole life. I was too young to notice. I went to a hero to help. I want to be a hero to help people who aren't given a chance. So when I started seeing the signs I missed in my best friend and you, I couldn't just stand by and let you suffer. Hitoshi squeezed his friend's hand back. He rubbed his tears into his cheek, removing the hastily applied concealer. He had been forced to sleep in the muzzle the night before, so he knew the wounds looked raw and painful. My quirk is a call and response. My foster parents make me wear a muzzle so I can't use it. He hits me and she neglects me. I barely get food. I don't have a bed. Sometimes they make me sleep outside. Hitoshi let it all tumble out. Too scared that if he stopped, his voice would fail. Bakugo was kneading his thumb into Hitoshi's palm to keep him grounded. A low, crackling sound came from Yamada. What do I do? If they find out I told, they'll hurt me, maybe even kill me. The crackling cut off as his other hand was grabbed. All pro heroes have emergency foster license for this exact reason. Would you like to come home with me? Hitoshi sobbed. Are you sure? I'm just a villain kid. Why would you want me? We would love to have you, Yamada assured. We want to help. Go for it, Hitoshi, Bakugo urged him. A warmth filled Hitoshi's chest as the blonde used his given name. Zashi and his husbands will be good for you. Husbands? Hitoshi hiccuped, finally getting control of his tears. Yeah, I have two, Yamada said. We've all been through something similar to you. Sho once made a drunken joke that we were the manifestation of see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. I was muzzled. Sho has a vision quirk, so he was blindfolded. And Namo had to wear noise-canceling headphones because he can hear lies. We understand you. We believe you. Will you let us help? Hitoshi's tears started again. All he could do was nod and gasp out a desperate yes. Strong arms suddenly wrapped around him, and Hitoshi didn't hesitate to cling to his friend. Thank you, Katsuki, he cried. Thank you. That is the end of chapter 10. And mind blown. I have tears in my eyes. Anywho. Chapter 11. Gifts and Gamers. Summary. It's Izuku's birthday, and the crew tried to help a mysterious stranger. I honestly don't remember this chapter. I really don't. But that is the end of this chapter. I have a feeling chapter 11 is going to be fun. So until next time, my beautiful mythical creatures, peace out. Stay hydrated and eat donuts.